Live from New York, it's Ask an Engineer.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Ask an Engineer. It's me, LadyAda, the engineer. With me, Mr. LadyAda on camera control behind the decks. We're broadcasting live from downtown Manhattan. We got all sorts of good stuff in the show. We got new products and videos and tutorials.
We have a fun show tonight.
Like hot breaking pull requests. The hottest, the most breaking, the most pull requests.
The most requested, the most pulled.
The most pulled. So let's kick it off, Mr. LadyAda. Tell them what's on tonight's show.
On tonight's show, the code is USB host. You'll see why. We have an amazing, new, never before seen thing we're going to show off tonight. This good news means you save 10% off the native free store all the way up till 11:59 p.m. or when I remember to turn the code off. We also have free stuff. We'll talk about that. We'll be talking about our live shows, including Show and Tell, which we just finished up. We'll do a little bit of a recap. We'll talk about Desk of LadyAda, including the Great Search, which you do every single week. We got JP's product pick of the week. Do a little bit of time travel. Have a little fun retro tech show and telly type thing we're going to do. Advanced manufacturing. We have some made in New York City factory footage. Some really cool and clearly the best. Clear. Get
cool.
It? Ha ha ha. 3D printing projects we're going to show this week. We're going to do Ion MPI. We got some new products. We're going to answer your questions. We do that over on Discord, adafruit.it/Discord or discord.gg. It's the way we can get to the questions because there's like a billion places that you can watch this video. All that and more on, you guessed it, Ask an Engineer.
Yay.
Okay. Let's first pay some bills so we can compensate people for their skills. Code is USB hosts. LadyAda, what do they get when they put things in their cart?
Okay, this video, although it's very cute, is really outdated, so we're going to redo this. Because right now, we're out of the Perma Proto freebies.
We're out of this. You don't get this.
You don't get this. But we're thinking of some other stuff we can do instead.
So you don't get this.
We do have KB 2040s. However, we are running low on the pink PCB version.
Oh, quick.
They're going to be black, which is cool. The Goth Adafruit black afterwards. But if you still want the pink version, put $149 or more in your cart and check out. $199 or more, you get free UPS ground shipping, continent to the United States. And I think as of today, we still have Circuit Playground Expresses free with your order of $299 or more. It's our all-in-one development board. Kind of excited to refresh this as well, but we did get a big shipment of these. Hopefully we're going to get a big shipment of these soon, and we'll be able to keep these as the freebies. But as the chip shortage ends, we're dealing with part quakes, as it were.
Part
quakes.
All right, we have some live shows. We just finished up Show and Tell, which was just a few moments ago. We hosted it, and I think next week is Liz and FBS JP. So on the Show and Tell, had a lot of neat music-related things, as always.
Yes.
If you want to check out this neat synth mod. We were trying to come up with a name. JP is modding this. It's called Computer Perfection. It's this game from the 70s. It came in this neat enclosure that I found, and I'm like, JP, buy one of these off eBay and let's turn it into something. So that's my pick of the week, only because I want help with what I don't know what this genre is going to be called.
Yeah,
it's like case modding, but like it's not circuit bending. It's something else. It's taking really cool, interesting, weird toy enclosures essentially from a while ago and putting very modern, advanced things inside of it.
How about synth stuffing?
Yeah, synth stuffing.
Stuffing the synth. Because you're stuffing synthesizers and stuff.
Yeah, that's right. You can do that.
Okay.
And then if you want to see a really good example of a chat GPT project that won't hurt your feelings, because I think folks they're getting a little extreme on like, this thing's going to take over the world, or it's like, this thing's going to do everything for me. We're doing a teddy bear project because it's great at just making up shit. And
if it's wrong, you're like, well, it's a stuffed animal.
It's a teddy bear.
Yeah.
It's a teddy bear, Jerry. So the teddy bear, you can ask it things like, are you a teddy bear? Or like, tell me a joke. And it uses ChatGPT, and you can turn on and off the microphone yourself. And like, it's a very good open source, transparent way, literally, to figure out like what type of interactive toys you could possibly make. So anyways, we showed that, and then we have a couple other projects on the Show and Tell. They were all really good, but that was one of the ones. And then Ann showed off some animated gift stuff, which you're going to show a little bit later on in Ask an Engineer. And then DJ Devin came by and showed this really neat LED project, and also Bleeding Rainbow. My new favorite song. We do Desk of LadyAda on Sundays. LadyAda, we have it in 2 parts. What did you show off in part 1?
Well, this week I talked a little bit about U2IF, which is the special firmware that we are going to make sure that works with all our RP2040 feathers, so you can run code on your CPython computer to control CAN bus or e-ink or other devices. So I don't know, it's kind of neat. I also showed off a prop feather that I'm designing, and it's not quite ready yet, but I wanted to just show it off. And also talked about USB PD as a possible NeoPixel driver.
Yeah, it looks like some of the show got cut off. I'll have to see what happened on that YouTube upload. Yeah. Then we do the Great Search brought to you by DigiKey and Adafruit. That's when you show people how to find things on digikey.com. What did you help them find this week?
Oh, so in this FUSB 302 USB power delivery breakout that I'm designing, I needed to find a low dropout regulator that would give me 3.3 volts from as high as 20 volts. And right now, all my LDOs that I stock, like the MIC5225 and the AP2112 and the RT9080 and all those other wonderful LDOs, they all go up to like 6 volts, and some of them go to like 12 volts, but none of them go to 20 or above. So I wanted to source a 100 milliamp capable 24 volt LDO that would fit in my kind of standard 5-pin SOT23 package, and find one that's a good price. This is actually kind of like a classic DigiKey search issue, which is like they have 70,000 different low dropout regulators, and you want one particular one, and we did find a couple good options. So I know it's a common question. People are like, I need a regulator, and I need to match these specifications. So check out this video.
All right, and then every single week we do JP's product pick of the week. That's where JP broadcasts live from inside the product page where the discounts automatically applied. Here is this week's highlight.
It is the ATtiny 816 and the ATtiny 616 breakout boards with Seesaw. I can program this ATtiny just like it's a baby Arduino. I've simply coded something that is reading button presses on this little step switch and is writing out to that LED. I've got a QT Py, and it's plugged in using the STEMMA-QT cable to my ATtiny 1616. I am running these 7 potentiometers into 7 of the ADC pins on the ATtiny. So that's able to read all of those analog values and then report them back to my QT Py. All I'm doing is adjusting values and showing them on this display here. You could use these, up to 9 of these analog inputs, for anything you want on your project. The ATtiny 816 and 1616 Seesaw breakout boards.
And don't forget, you can watch JP's workshop tomorrow, and you can see the super cool thing that he showed off on the show and tell today. And on Fridays, we have Deep Dive with Tim, where you can learn all the innards of CircuitPython and more. That's 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. Let's do a little bit of time traveling. We did stuff on the weekend, and we do stuff with a kiddo now. So one of the things we wanted to do is have a very traditional Easter Sunday. What we did was
we did go to a friend's.
Yeah, we did. We were going to go to an egg hunt, but I think the folks had the flu or COVID or something like that. So we did something else, and we went on a train. We did stuff. But one of the things that we wanted to do was we don't post pictures of our kids, so I'm a fan of Donnie Darko, and so we 3D printed this Donnie Darko mask with PLA, and then she's behind there with the bunny costume, and then we made a Happy Easter from Adafruit. If you're familiar with Donnie Darko, this is
it's like Easter. It's an Easter movie.
It's Easter-ish, just like The Gremlins is a Christmas movie. It's fine. It's fine. This is getting in the spirit. So anyways, whatever you celebrate, whatever you do, happy springtime from us here at Adafruit. And this is, I like this. Never question our commitment to Sparkle Motion. Adafruit.io, our little bit of news that's big news for us is there's now over 2,000 devices for Whippersnapper. LadyAda, for the folks who haven't tried this out yet, what is it and why should they try it out?
Ooh, so Whippersnapper is a service we have with Adafruit.io. It's kind of like a brand part of Adafruit.io, where you can store, send, and retrieve data using a cloud service that we run. And it makes things easier for controlling stuff wirelessly, because instead of you hosting your own MQTT broker or trying to like figure stuff out with Azure or Google Cloud or AWS, we make it really, really easy for makers to log data, to retrieve data, to remotely control stuff. And Whippersnapper is a no-code way of doing that. Basically, we give you a firmware blob that you run on ESP32 or SAMD51 or other, like we have tons of different boards that are supported. You just tell it what your SSID and password is in your Adafruit IO account, and then you can even control what hardware is set up. You can configure that on the web.
It's free.
Totally no code.
It's easy. We're making it too easy to do IoT projects. That's what we've heard.
So yeah, we're now especially with our new feathers that have STEM QT and all our sensors have STEM QT, you can now build an IoT logging service, like system. Like you want to log your temperature and humidity, or you want to make sure there's no water leaking somewhere, or you want to turn a relay on or off. You can do all of that without any coding or soldering whatsoever.
Drag and drop.
And it's free.
Drag and drop. Simple things like, I just want to know if I left my garage door open, or like, I just want to know if something's leaking because I have to go out for 2 hours and something was kind of leaking, and I just want to get notified if that's happening. Like things like that, which is, no one's going to build a device just to do that, like a commercial device, but you can do it really easy. And I think it's the only thing like it out there. So we have now 2,000 different devices that are using it. So clicking along.
Very neat. And it's free. Why? Because we hope you buy hardware from us once in a while. So you don't have to worry about it getting sold or discontinued.
Adafruit IO, there's always going to be a free tier. And then we also have Plus for people who, like, they're starting to use it for, like, business.
Yeah.
So
you get you get a lot more feeds and devices, because we have to pay for the server. So if you're using a lot of resources, we ask you just sign up for a program.
Yeah. And one of the things that we didn't like over the years is every time we used an IoT service,
it would get discontinued.
It would get discontinued, or
purchased, or
sold. They'd merge with like Flurfur Web something.
I hate Flur.
And we're like, okay, and you don't, and your data gets shared with whatever company that acquires it.
I mean, why'd you cancel Flur feeder?
Yeah. So
Flur
yeah, so we wanted to have something that everyone can use and just know it's safe, it's private, and it's easy to use.
That's right. All right. Okay. Congratulations, Whippersnapper.
Yay! All right, so we have some retro tech this week. This one's going to be a little different. We're going to show off the Apple product that you probably have never heard of and never seen. The reason why I'm going to show this off this week is because there's actually like a beautiful like ebook online. It's all the like notes and letters and like things that Steve Jobs put together. They actually spent a big deal on this. I think like it's been a multi-year effort to kind of capture the things about Steve Jobs and how Apple came about. However, there's a story that's not being told and probably never going to be told about Apple. Because if you look around, it's like, wow, like Apple's this like pro company. Look at all this slick hardware. It was
so legal.
It was made by pirates doing TVB Gone stuff and jamming radio waves. And I think that's something that should be celebrated. Mischief and hacking and electronics. And if you think about it, without that, there wouldn't be an Apple. So however you feel about, big tech companies, Apple in particular was started by a bunch of phone freaking pirates. So this is the device. This is the first Apple product. They weren't called Apple at the time. But what I wanted to show is these cool baseball-like cards. And let me switch to the overhead here. So, LadyAda, you could show these off. This is Phone Freaker cards. Berkeley Blue, also known as Steve Wozniak. And then Oaf Tobar, which I can't find why Steve Jobs called himself that. It was in one line in one book when I did some research, but can't really find out why he chose that. Maybe if I put this through one of those word things, maybe it spells something else. Or if anyone knows, let me know. But flip over to the back. So this is that product. All new for 72. In the spring of 72, technical folks with pseudonym handles took to automating Ma Bell with a handmade gadget that produces tones and frequencies which fool the system to thinking they're the phone company. Now for a little bread, you can have one too. So this made free phone calls. Back when you could do stuff like that. in 1972.
Back when it actually meant something. Like now, of course, people are like, "What do you mean you pay for a phone call? Why don't you just use like Skype or something? It's free." No, you had to use to pay like by the minute.
Yeah. So this is the first Apple product you've never heard of. This is how, if you're using a Mac or an iPhone or whatever, this is how it got here. And one of the things that I thought that was interesting is there's one clip I found, the only place where I've heard Steve Jobs talk about his days of piracy. So he was introducing like something in 2006, I think, and the clicker wasn't working. And then he was talking about
Just like, I had to kill time.
Jammers.
And here's the thing: he's like, like you see this and you're like, wow, this guy's really charismatic. Like he's just like, okay, I'm gonna instantly tell a story.
Yeah, and here's the thing.
Story.
And here's the thing I like, and I like this because we're kind of living through our own little version. It's like, we got a lot of shit for TV Be Gone, showing people how to turn TVs off.
Oh, I still get like
you get a lot of shit
for the pager stuff.
For the pager thing we showed.
For the
Your
cell phone
thesis
jammer.
was the cell phone jammer. But the idea that you can explore technology and understand things and hack them and mod them and share the information, that's how the world's most successful company got here. Whether you like it or not, it was formed by phone freaking pirates that wanted to kind of screw over Ma Bell. Like, they've become the now big company, which I think is the Circle of Life Simba. But, there was a time when they were the underdog. And that's how they thought about things, and like, how can we work around stuff? And I think that's really important to hold that spirit. So that's why we'll keep trying to get into mischief. We'll make mistakes sometimes. I'll end up apologizing for things because I like pranks. But I think you get a little glimpse of it once in a while. And as the story of Apple continues to be told, some of these stories you don't really hear. So I thought this was a fun clip. So that's our retro for this week. I'll see you on the other side of the clip.
We're going to bring some great stuff to market over together. So, let's take a look at this market and how big it is. My clicker's not working. Oh, there it is. Maybe it is working. So how big is this market? Well, let's take a look. No. All righty. Clicker is not working. All right. They're scrambling backstage right now. When I was in high school, Steve Wozniak and I, mostly Steve, made this little device called a TV jammer. And it was this little oscillator that would put out frequencies that would screw up the TV. And Woz would have it in his pocket. And we'd go into a dorm at Berkeley where he was going to school. And a bunch of folks would be watching Star Trek. And he'd screw up the TV. And somebody would go up to fix it. And just as they had their foot off the ground, he'd turn it back on. And if they put their foot back on the ground, he'd screw up the TV again. And within 5 minutes, he'd have somebody like this for the rest of the Star Trek episode. Okay, so maybe it's working now. Maybe they're going to have to click them for me.
And that's Retro Tech for this week. All right, it's Python and Harbor time, LadyAda.
Yay, Blinka.
It is time. Okay, so if you haven't already, please subscribe to our Python Hardware newsletter. It's Adafruit Daily, and we don't do anything with your email address. We don't spam you. It is the biggest collection of Python and hardware news in the world. So last week we did the breaking news about the Raspberry Pi Python editor online, which is great because we don't want to build an online Python code editor.
Oh, no, I do not.
We don't want to do that.
Nope. And
so we're glad that Raspberry Pi is. So you could use this for anything with Python, including CircuitPython and stuff like that. So it's a neat code editor. It'll help young people age 7 and older learn to write code. And it's for all their coding clubs, coder dojos. It's beta. They want folks to test it out and let them know how it works. And it's not just limited to students, so everyone can use it. And then I have a little bit of announcement before we talk about some of the things that we're working on right now. PyCon, we're going to have a couple people there. Kattni and Jeff are going to be there, and here is what they want you all to know. Kattni and Jeff will be hosting 3 days of development sprints from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday, April 24th through Wednesday, April 26th. Jeff will be joining on Monday. The location will be determined during the conference. They want to let you know if you're attending, please let Kattni know ahead of time in the CircuitPython dev channel on Discord, or you can come find them at the conference. We'd love to meet up. We're looking forward to PyCon 2023, and we hope to see you there too. This is where we meet a lot of folks. Some of them we hired at Adafruit. So if you're going to PyCon, please stop by and say hi to our team. And then last up, before we talk about the kind of new thing that we're going to preview today, I thought this was neat. This is a circuit playground using CircuitPython to make an edible Dungeons and Dragons cake.
Yay!
That rolls dice.
Cool.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I love it. It's supposed to make it easy. It's supposed to be like the programming doesn't get in the way of your project.
Yeah. So in our CircuitPython news, this was in our internal Slack today. LadyAda is like, hey Scott, could you get CircuitPython doing stuff with our new Feather DVI? And
this is Scott loves to drop hot images. So this is a Feather RP2040 DVI, the board that we released last week. Maybe it was the week before. Connected up to an HDMI monitor, and you see the native display I/O and REPL is on a monitor. This is cool. One, we've always wanted to be able to do really good screen captures of CircuitPython. If you're typing stuff, so instead of taking a photo, you can actually now do a screen cap of display I/O, which is super neat. Second, it means that people can do video synths and like cool video projects that display on a monitor. Using CircuitPython, and we have Arduino support right now, and it works great. But maybe you want to use a CircuitPython that you know and love, all the sprite stuff, and maybe the video games that, we had the PyGamer people wrote some games for the PyGamer for a TFT display. But now maybe they could port those games over. So maybe I'll have Scott adapt his.
The cool thing about this is we have no idea what people are going to do with it. Like when I saw this, I'm just like, I can't wait till Toddbot can kick the tires on this, because we finally have not only a screen directly from CircuitPython. You could there's ways to do things, and you could look at a screen, but this is going out to TV, a big
projector,
right?
I mean, there's actually a lot. I mean, it's a lot of stuff has DVI input.
Yeah.
Also, you can of course convert DVI to other. You can convert to NTSC. Yeah. There's a lot of.
And
converters.
It's Python, so that just means anyone can make anything and plug it into these monoliths that we just have stuck to our walls that don't do anything most of the time. So, anyways, we'll get the word out. It's not on the nightly build yet. It needs to.
No, it's not even. It's not even pulled in. It's
this is breaking news.
It's so hot.
Yeah.
And you've got 16-bit, 8-bit, 4-bit, 2-bit, and 1-bit. So 320 by 240, but it's pixel doubled to 640 by 40. But most of our displays are 320 by 240, so it's actually very similar. I think he did say that on the 1 and 2-bit per pixel color, so it's monochrome or near monochrome, he did get full 640 by 480, but maybe I didn't understand it.
Okay. Don't forget, sign up, Adafruit Daily. We deliver this every single week, and you'll be able to, of course, follow along on that project and more very soon. All right, we're an open source hardware company. To prove it, we're not complaining about open source hardware licenses. It's a funny joke just for us. So we have a bunch of guides.
We have a ton of guides.
And more. What's new on the big board this week, LadyAda?
Okay, I'll be honest, I can't remember exactly what was from last week. So let's go to the bottom and I'll just do the last 8.
Okay. Well, I can tell you. So.
Which one was it?
So the Apple II emulator, that's new.
That's new.
That's new. The glider update is here. We already did Make It Glow.
Make It Glow we did.
The airlift, that's an update. The robotic teddy bear is an update. And then these top ones are all new.
Those are all new.
Yeah.
Okay. The clear resin 3D prints, we have a video we're going to show. So we saw a couple people make clear Game Boys cases with PCBWay. They're translucent or transparent clear resin prints. And this is something that's, it's something that a lot of people want to 3D print. They want to make these beautiful clear 90s style cases. And it's really, really, really hard to do it, even with a home 3D printer that's really expensive. It's just really messy. It never comes out quite right. You always have to do a lot of cleanup after the fact. So when we saw you can get parts 3D printed by a service, it takes a couple weeks and it's not inexpensive, but it's also not overly expensive. It's still cheaper than getting stuff injection molded, and it looks really great. So Noah and Pedro did a video showing a couple of examples, including tinted plastic, press fit, keycaps, etc. Very cool. It's not wasn't sponsored by PCBWay. I know people are sponsored with them, and that's totally cool, but we actually just decided to do this on our own, and we paid for all the parts. And did a guide on doing animated GIFs in CircuitPython. We've had animated GIF playback in Arduino. You can also do it in CircuitPython. It's not quite as fast, but you can still do a lot of animations. If you just want to have like a startup screen, or you want to have some animation and you don't want to have it hand done with sprites, load up a GIF. It does have to be in a certain kind of format, but it's a non-compressed format, a very simple format. And you can play GIFs on your CircuitPython display.io, including the DVI displays. We'll try that out if we have enough memory. Liz did a library for the Wii Classic controller. We've got a breakout that lets you plug in one of these sort of standard Wii controllers to it's I2C. It converts it to SemiQT for easy plug and play with all of our boards. And this lets you add a controller very easily because I2C is almost like universally supported. And you don't have to worry about converting like SNES or NES, level shifting, whatever, latching. And the controller's really great. It's got 2 joysticks and lots of buttons. And then Katney's also started the guide for the Feather RP2040 with RFM radio. So good for CircuitPython use because the Feather M0 didn't have a ton of memory. The RP2040 has tons. And this board is great for making remote controls that use 900 megahertz and soon 433 megahertz will have a version. And there's a UFL connector, StemmaQT, when CircuitPython. We've got a library going and Arduino support as well.
All right, and then I wanted to show just some quick. Here's some of the animated GIFs that you can do.
Yeah.
This isn't running the game. It's just a GIF.
It's a GIF, but maybe that's useful.
But this is the start too. It's like there's
good.
a lot of times where you want to show interfaces and things. That's this week's open source hardware news and more. Let's do some factory footage, LadyAda. And that's the factory footage. Let's do some 3D printing. All right, so we have the clear resin thing that we're going to show, and then we're going to do a speed up. So one of the things that we try to make super clear, so we don't get sponsored for any of these things, but people always assume the worst in one another. Twitter kind of ruined human existence. So we put a specific note on this because PCBWay does a lot of like sponsorships and they have people do stuff. We didn't get any money, we didn't do anything, we just used their service, we paid for it ourselves. But for the folks that are active in the community, you could always assume we don't take sponsorship, and if we do, we'll say so. We'll say this is brought to you by
like on MPI, brought to you by DigiKey.
Brought to you by DigiKey. So I think that's one of the things that we'll need to do more and more of, because everyone just assumes the worst in each other, and I don't blame people, because why wouldn't you? Because everything is, for the most part, a lie. So why wouldn't you assume the worst? And all these like
you don't have to.
Internet, you don't have to. It's a crummy way to go through life, assuming the worst intentions or the worst in everyone. But we'll try to make sure we're always clear about this stuff, because PCBWay specifically. We didn't want anyone to say, "Oh, look, Adafruit is getting bad to shield the PCBWay." That's what it sounds like. Anyways, we didn't get paid to do this.
We didn't.
We just thought it was cool. Okay, let's play these videos back to back, and then we'll see you on the other side for Ion MPI.
You can get 3D printed parts in clear resin using the 3D printing service from PCBWay. This video is not sponsored or affiliated with PCBWay, and the parts seen here were purchased on our own behalf. These parts feature a crystal clear surface finish that are reminiscent of the transparent gadgets of the 1990s. They were 3D printed by PCBWay using UTR 8100 resin with the spray varnish option. We think this is a good option for makers who don't want to deal with the hassle and mess of 3D printing in resin. Parts like this rotary crank feature hinges that allow 2 degrees of movement so you can have parts with print-in-place mechanisms. In our testing, our mechanical parts have a minimum clearance of 0.4 millimeters. That's the distance between the surfaces so you can have parts that move freely and don't fuse together. This print-in-place handle features pins with a diameter of 2 millimeters. These hexagon-shaped keycaps showcase how backlighting your parts in clear resin creates a really nice edge-lit effect. Start by going to PCBWay's website and click the 3D printing call to action. Click Select CAD Files to bring up the File Browser dialog and navigate to your files. Then click the Quantity box to choose your desired amount or enter a custom number in the text input. Under Material, make sure resin is selected and then choose UTR 8100 Transparent. You'll want the transparent varnish color option. If you want dyed parts, click on the Surface Finish dropdown and choose from the color swatches or enter a custom Pantone color in the text input. Once you're ready, click on the Submit Request button to proceed with the payment and shipping details. You can have your resin prints dyed with a custom Pantone color like this AdaBot minifig. We picked a bluish color that wasn't quite exactly the right shade of blue, but it still looks pretty good, so your choice of dye might vary. Our original model features separate parts that are supposed to be movable, but because the tolerances are below the recommended minimum, the individual pieces were merged together, resulting in a unified solid model. This snap fit case features a minimum wall thickness of 1.5 millimeters with a clearance of 0.2 millimeters. These are actually the exact same models we designed for FDM 3D printing, and surprisingly, they work just the same. If your parts feature standoffs with mounting holes, be sure to make them slightly undersized so you can use a screw tap to create the threads. Parts like this back cover have a noticeable flex to them that allow them to bend slightly. We think clear resin parts are great for DIY electronics because they let you see what's inside and allow you to appreciate them even more. We hope this inspires you to check out PCBWay's 3D printing service for your next project.
Okay, and before we go to IONMPI, don't forget the code is USB host. Here we go. IONMPI brought to you by DigiKey and Adafruit. This week's it's Skyworks. LadyAda, what is this week's IONMPI?
I'm glad you asked. This is, I think, the first time we've featured Skyworks, which is so cool. I always like to point out whenever we get to a new company, we've done many ADI, Maxim, TI, ST, NPIs, but this one is from Skyworks. This is the, let me get the part number correctly, it's the SI 3404 and SI 3406. PoE controller chips. This was actually brought to our attention by our BFF over at DigiKey, David Sandys. He's like, check out this cool chip. And I was like, oh yeah, that is really cool. Let's feature it on Ion NPI. This chip is a almost fully integrated PoE compliant power delivery interface and high efficiency switching regulator with combat footprint. Okay, what does it mean? If you want to make something that is PoE compatible, so it can work with power over Ethernet, and it will be powered over the Ethernet cable, and you want to have it all integrated so you don't need like an external adapter of some sort, this chip pretty much does all the work for you. Now there's two versions. One I think is 13 watts and one is 34 watts. The 3404 is the lower wattage one. They're available in small packages, and you don't need a lot of components to then make your product or project fully powered over Ethernet while it's also getting data from that Ethernet. Very handy and very easy to use. Now you're probably wondering, hey, Skyworks, that sounds really familiar. Yeah, that's right. That's the company that their chip fab is featured in Such Great Heights, the Postal Service song from about 20 years ago.
Wow, that's a deep cut.
That is a deep cut. And here's the thing. First off, they're going on tour this fall. They didn't sponsor part of this, but I've got tickets. It's a great album if you haven't read it. The video...
it would be great if the Postal Service and Death Cab for Cutie sponsored our show.
That would be pretty sweet. What's interesting is I went back to see the video because I remember when the video came out that it had.
Top by Post Intent. Thank you.
Thank you. It's everyone's favorite Skyworks video. Correct.
Yeah.
The logo is on the chip as they zoom out. It's like a promotional video for Skyworks, and it had the Skyworks logo on the chip, and it's now blurred out, which is a kind of a bummer.
Oh man, this is like all the songs in WKRP in Cincinnati you can't listen to anymore.
Yeah. Anyways.
I wonder if there's a version of it that is not blurred out.
I looked, but like, how
someone
many
has
hours
a
can I spend?
VCR tape somewhere.
Somebody please
Videotape.
Well, the original MTV.
You know what we could do? What? We could use some of those video AI services and put the logos back.
Yeah.
That's going to be the new thing, where all the logos are blurred.
All the blurred logos.
We're going to put it back. Hey, Skyworks, don't worry, we got you.
Okay, great. But back to the topic at hand. Get tickets for this. It's going to be awesome. Next slide. Instead of a clicker, I've got a Mr. LadyAda.
Yeah.
Okay, so Power over Ethernet. What is it? If you've never used it before, it's actually quite popular these days. And the Raspberry Pi has a PoE hat, and we have a bunch of devices around the house that can use a Power over Ethernet. Basically, historically, if you had devices that were Ethernet, that used Ethernet for communications, you would have the big long Ethernet cable, right? And that would plug into your, the Cat5 would plug into your RJ11 jack, and then you'd also have a separate power adapter. And here's the thing about the power adapter. It would always be different. It would be like, we have in the store like this 35 kit power adapter ends thing, because like, is it 2.5 millimeters or 1.3, 2.2, negative polarity, positive polarity? You always have to like carry around this gigantic wall wart. And usually only a couple watts of power. Usually only need 12 volts, 1 amp, maybe 2 amp. And for a lot of devices, you don't need that much current, but they do want to have Ethernet, not Wi-Fi, because Ethernet's going to be a lot more reliable. You can push a lot more data through it. And for stuff like IP cameras, like internet cameras or phone systems, you want the reliability of Ethernet. You don't want your phone or your camera to stop working because the Ethernet, the Wi-Fi goes down. So Ethernet is more reliable. But you don't want to also have these gigantic wire cables all over the place. And I was, in the text in the blog post that goes with this feature, the Ion NPI, I linked to the video where they talk about Scilabs, which was purchased. This part was purchased by Skyworks. That's why it starts with SI. They talk about why why they think Power Ethernet really took off for building automation, and they made a really good point. I mean, kind of obvious, but at the time I didn't realize it. Which is, in a lot of buildings, to lay power cords like 120 volt or 220 volt, you need an electrician, you need permits, you have safety protocols, all are correct. You should be careful because you can get electrocuted if you don't wire up your outlets correctly. But Ethernet can be pulled and routed and attached to anything by an IT professional. You don't need it.
That's a good point.
Yeah, even in the house, right? We have Ethernet that we just put around the edge of the molding. So a lot of times when buildings have to do retrofits, if you can do PoE, it's a lot easier than trying to get power into places that you didn't have, especially if it's like, I need it on the ceiling for this camera or to every desk. for the PoE telephone system, or to the doors for the door entry, for the badging entry system. So that's one of the reasons that these are extremely popular, is it really cuts down complexity and costs in building out. You will need to have on the other side a PoE capable switch. So this is where the power comes from. So this thing has like a ginormous power adapter. Or sometimes they plug directly into 120 volt power, but then you get 8 ports of PoE. Each one can do, maybe a total of 153 watts. And they will provide to you 48 volts on the extra pins that you negotiate with, and there's like a whole 802, standard protocol for how they request the PoE. It doesn't just magically come out. You have to have a switch, and you have to have the chip know how to request that data. One option, if they're just showing this, we have a PoE splitter. The PoE splitter actually has an SI3404 inside of it, which I thought was funny. But this is how it would work. You have the hub on the top there, and you see it's powered, and there's the Ethernet cord. The Ethernet cord goes into the PoE splitter, which then provides data Ethernet, and in this case, 5-volt USB power. But this is a little clunky, right? I mean, ideally, you would have it all built into your device. You just plug in the Ethernet cable. You don't need this separate device. So Scilabs developed this protocol, portfolio for PoE, sold it to Skyworks. It's now Skyworks sold, and they have both the power managers, the power sourcing equipment, so like what provides the PoE power, and at the bottom you see the latest series, the SI3404 and 3406, came out a couple of years ago. The power devices, the other end that requests power. But integration is really easy. It's one of the things that I think is really neat about this family. You don't need a lot of components to get going. Almost everything is kind of done automatically. You do need a little bit of protection circuitry, and some diodes and a big inductor, because the inductor, of course, can't be inside of it. But one of the things that Scilab is really good at is like kind of cramming everything inside, so you need a minimum number of components. So, for example, the SI3404, the lower cost one, you only need 2 full wave rectifiers on the left there. That's because the power coming in from Ethernet is AC. And then you see there's a couple of passives. You have the sense resistor, an inductor, a diode for the buck converter to convert from 48 down. And then the output voltage is just set by the FBH, the feedback resistor. This is the SI3406. It's a little bit more powerful. It looks like you don't need to have a full wave rectifier, but in this case you do need to have a flyback inductor. It looks like it doesn't do the buck mode, but maybe I don't trust me completely. It could be that it does. There's also isolated versions. These are the non-isolated, but if you see here, there's eval boards, and I can show on the overhead real fast. This is the isolated eval board for the SI3406. Yeah, thank you. I want to zoom in. Okay, wait. And you see here, this is the chip. And then on the bottom, you have the full wave rectifier. And then here you see the opto isolator, it looks like, and then a flyback inductor. So this is fully isolated, so you don't have to worry about this ground messing with that ground. I think for medical and other applications, you might need to have isolated power. Okay, so let's go back. And all these eval boards are available at DigiKey, except for the one I just bought, but most of them are. For the 3404, 3406, isolated, non-isolated buck, non-buck, etc. So pick those up. And the chips themselves, there's a lot of them in stock. And they're like under $2 in quantity, which is a really, really good deal. It's cheaper than just like getting because you can't use non-switching power adapters anymore, which is good because the transformer-based ones were very heavy and also had a lot of like vampire power. So for like only a couple bucks, like this, and then a couple of diodes and inductors, so maybe a bill of materials about $2, you could add power over Ethernet to any of your product or project designs.
I'd like to have a company called Vampire Power.
Vampire Power.
Okay, cool. All right, that's this week's Sign MPI.
On MPI.
Okie dokie, LadyAda. Before we go off to new products, the code is USB host. Use it or lose it. 10% off the Adafruit store. Anything we have in stock, and you get all the free stuff that we have remaining. Let's do new products.
Yeah,
What's new?
It's time for some new products and some updated products as well.
There's some revisions.
First up, we've got a revision for the ADT 7410. This temperature sensor from Analog Devices, which is why it's in red. It was a partnership with DigiKey and ADI. It's in beautiful red, now has a nice silk screen, and it's also, this was literally the last sensor before we STEMMA-QT-ified everything. We finally ran out of the old PCBs. We now have the STEMMA-QT version of this sensor. It's a lovely temperature sensor. It's inexpensive. It's Analog Devices quality, and now it's plug and play with STEMMA-QT ports on it. You can still use all of our existing CircuitPython and Arduino code, but I don't have to do any soldering.
All right, and for the next one, before we go and talk about it, we have this like sort of rule at Adafruit is we don't want to put our logo on like shot glasses and like, you know, t-shirts that aren't cool, or just like basically almost anything that's not electronic based.
Yeah.
But people all the time say, I want Adafruit swag, and we're like, well, I don't want to like print it on a pen or like rebrand someone else's soldering iron.
I'm definitely glad that the whole shot glass thing is over.
Yeah,
it's like really nice.
Yeah, and we're just like not into that. So anything that we put the logo on has to be special, and usually that's reserved for our PCBs. So we have a workaround, and here is one of this week's new products.
Well, this is coming soon. They're not quite in the store, but we did get nice photos because why not?
These are PCB coasters.
2 PCB coasters, and there's 2 designs.
Yeah.
One is aluminum PCB, so it's a stiffer material, and one is FR4, but it's 2mm FR4.
Yeah.
Ironically, the aluminum is actually a little less expensive, but it comes in silver with lead-free hassle on the top, and the gold one is again FR4, 2mm thick. But it does have ENIG gold coat. So you have silver and gold.
We're not going to make these forever either, so this is just a fun experiment. This is one of the few things with an Adafruit logo. So, you know.
We had the other PCB coasters that were actually down in the clearance section if you want to pick them up. The hexagonal ones that we did as a partnership with, I can't remember their names.
Boldport.
Wow. That was a good find.
Who says memory? Who said?
Who says that your memory goes away?
I forgot who said memory. Okay.
All right, so yours is coming soon.
All right, so the start of the show tonight, besides you, LadyAda, our community, our team, our customers, everyone who makes this thing go is
yet another RP2040 feather. You're going to see a bunch of these because I designed a whole bunch in a row. This is the USB host feather.
This is a big deal.
I like that we're getting really weird boards out. This is a weird one. The DVI feather was weird.
We're back on our bullshit.
We are absolutely back on our bullshit. So this is an RP2040 feather, and it's got, you know, the ARM Cortex M0, dual core, 133 megahertz, 8 megabytes of flash, boot button, reset button, STEMMA-QT, LiPo battery management, so you can take this portable and it recharges the battery, USB-C, all that good stuff. And on the other end, in the space left over, there's a USB host port. So this is your standard Type A USB port. And even though it's a surface mount package, it's quite strong. Believe me, I've definitely plugged and unplugged many a thing, and it does not rip off. Although, don't try. You could if you really wanted to. And as well as that, there's also got to the left of it, you see that big inductor. There's a 5-volt boost converter, and you see that thing that says 5 kind of above the RX, kind of in the bottom right corner. That's a 5-volt fuse, so that if you happen to short the 5-volt power, it won't accidentally damage your battery or your boost converter. And you might be saying, hey, wait, the RP2040 doesn't have 2 USB ports. What's going on? Do you switch between the 2 of them?
How do you do it?
Good question. With a lot of hacky code. So the native USB is still the USB-C ports. That's how you program the board, get into the bootloader, do debugging, etc. And on the right is a PIO bit-banged USB port. So you can actually, because this is the thing, the RP2040 does have native USB host. You can use the main port as host, but then you have to like unplug it every time you program it, and it's like a total pain. So what this does is it has a separate single core dedicated just to PIO bit banging out USB host, and it works. and it works like kind of well, actually. Like considering your bit banging USB host, which I don't know who else has done it. It's based off of, I'm going to mispronounce their name. I think it's Sekong Donok is their name. They're a developer who wrote the PIO bitbang code in Pico SDK, and then we turned it in Adafruit and TAC, who works for us on TinyUSB, turned that into a supported interface in TinyUSB Arduino. So within Arduino, you can now plug in USB devices like mass storage, CDC, USB serial, HID, or if you want to add other protocols, go for it. I think even hubs work. And you can send and receive data as if it had a native USB port. Now, I'll say it's bit banged. This is not high speed, it's full speed, you're not going to get
That's okay, because there's some really good uses for this.
But there's a lot of uses, and again, it's very, very rare to get a low-cost device that has USB host. Usually you have to go to a very high-end microcontroller to get 2 USB ports.
Yeah. What could you use this for?
What could you use for? So one is HID. Well, first off, one demo I thought would be cool is you plug in a USB key, and then you do data logging to that USB key, so you can write and read data off of a USB key instead of an SD card, where then you need, because then you can unplug it and then you're like, okay, my USB key is ready to go. Another thing it can do is which I use it for, is I use this to program microcontrollers. So if you have a board that programs like an ESP32 and you program it over the USB CDC, this can read and write the serial data as if it was just like a normal UART. And I use it to program ESP32 boards over USB.
Yeah.
And then
we have a really big keyboard we're going to show you.
Okay. And another thing is you can do HID remapping or other weird USB devices. So
I'm going to go to us.
You go to us because this is
Look at
really
this.
big. Okay. So you got this IntelliKeys, and this is a underneath is actually a touch matrix of 28 by 28 buttons, and you have this overlay that goes over. So this is just like a touch matrix. It's not capacitive touch, it's resistive touch. And it has like 28 or 24 by 24 or something like that matrix of keys. And then you can have these different overlays that go over
to the
it.
side here. So this is, used in an assistive technology setting.
And it's great because it's really durable.
Amazing. But these don't work with modern computers.
That's right. And the reason they don't work with modern computers is the company, I don't think they went out of business, but they discontinued this product. And the way it works is it dynamically changes first off, the firmware is loaded with the driver. So the driver itself, it only is for, I think, Windows, and I think it stopped working as of Windows 7, and it loads the firmware for the Cypress Easy USB chip through the driver itself. So when this connects, it says, hi, send me the latest firmware, and the firmware binary blob is sent over USB, and then it re-enumerates as the new device. Second, depending on what the overlay is, it has different devices. For example, this one has a mouse overlay as well, so it can act like as a mouse and keyboard, whereas this one has arrow keys, so it's only a keyboard, so it comes as a different device.
And when you talk to people who need a device like this, they're not really able to find something right now.
Yeah,
there's nothing that really does it, especially something that works with an iPad or a Chromebook or Android tablet.
So this doesn't work still on Windows. I think you can still kind of get it working on Windows.
Yeah.
People who compiled it, but it doesn't work on other devices.
One thing I'll say, because I've talked to folks that are caretakers for primary caretakers for people that have accessibility needs. They're not Windows 7 experts. Like, this is...
Yeah, and it's unsigned. And
it's like, okay, all you need to do is, like, recompile a kernel and... like, all of a sudden it starts to, it's like, you may as well just...
But also, maybe you want to use, like, a tablet. Like, a lot of people are using tablets and phones these days. They don't want to haul around the laptop with them.
And iOS has a lot of accessibility stuff, but there's nothing that plugs into it that's like this.
So what you do is you've got, this, or you have other devices that are HID and you want to twist them or convert them or remap them. And then you plug it in. This is the IntelliKeys plugged in. I'm doing this live demo. I hope this works. I tried it before, but it works. Plugs into the USB host here. And then this is the feather. And then the USB side of the feather connects to a USB camera. These are like the camera adapters.
LadyAda asked, she's like, do you have one of those lightning to USB connectors? And I rolled in with 2 different types.
These are 2 different types.
Right.
This one works. And this allows you to connect keyboards to devices. So... let's try plugging it in.
I'm going to go to the overhead, so let's see what happens with your iPad.
Okay, so just take a second because it's like it has to enumerate.
It's like, what am I? How'd I get here? All
okay,
right.
let me see. It didn't make the noise, so I don't know.
Okay.
I will say that this is a live demo. Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
There's
so it
the
just
noise.
beeped.
I heard the noise.
It just beeped. So now when I type on this, can you put me in the corner?
I can put us here like this.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So let
no,
me
you
try it live demo. So I'm going to try typing. Ooh. Hello. Enter. So there you go. So
This is like a scene from Sphere.
Yeah, and so like again, something that is. It seems like, oh, what's the big deal? It's USB, you can just plug it in, but it's actually it's so difficult to get this stuff working.
Yeah. For the folks who know what this is and what this is all about, you're going to freak out. You're going to be like, wait a second.
So it does work. Okay, so here's the caveat incoming. This is only for Arduino. It's not supported in CircuitPython at this time, and I do not know if or when we might be able to get it working.
We could use some help.
If somebody is interested in helping. But we do have it working in Arduino. We've got mass storage, CDC, and HID. So not every, like you can't necessarily plug in a camera, and you can't necessarily plug in like your phone or a Kindle. Not everything is going to work. Just some of the really basic USB devices. But people could have
every county, every city has people who have used these, or now these are about to get thrown away, or like they're in a warehouse somewhere. So this just means we could potentially unlock a lot of hardware for people with accessibility needs. Also, this is really cool. Like, this is a cool keyboard. Like, this is neat.
Okay, so that's a live demo. So that's the USB host Feather. Really neat. Also, of course, if you want to do USB host to something else, like you want this to go to I2C, or you want to maybe have it read a keyboard and then have that come out through the UART, right? You could still program it very easily because the USB port, you're not doing that hot swap USB port thing.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be USB to USB conversion. It can be USB to something else, or back and forth, or whatever. Anyways, I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah, and
check it out. Definitely
just
weird.
on a side note, Adafruit's still around. We're still able to do hardware. We want to do weird stuff like this, and even if you don't buy stuff for weird stuff like this, when you buy other things, it supports all this.
And this took a lot of development time.
This was a heavy lift.
It was a heavy lift, but we did it. Very cool. So that's this week's new product. Check it out. It's in the shop, and you can get 10% off. New, 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 new. New, 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 new.
Okay, don't forget the code is USB host. We're going to do some questions. We do that over on Discord. Go to adafruit.it/Discord, and,
Ask questions.
Ask questions. Okay. One that was earlier. Do you know why the industries standardized on 48 volts? Someone said it was because of distance and like it could do power
well, you
drops.
definitely need to have it be high voltage because Ethernet cables can be very long, right? 100 meters is not drops are not very uncommon. I think they probably just did some math and said like, okay, let's say you have the longest cable that, gigabit Ethernet or 100, 10 base T supports, and then you want to make sure you can get 5 watts at the other end, and they just did some math and they said, here's the voltage. I will say you can't go above a certain voltage before safety regulations come in, and usually 24 and 48 volts. Like if you go above that, there is different IEC like safety regulations necessary. I think 48 was probably as high as they could go before the safety regulations kicked in.
Okay, couple comments on this. Accessibility is not talked about much, especially devices like this that work. They're just old. Thanks for showcasing this. It's super cool. Next up is someone who has been wanting a way to turn all these cheapy USB MIDI controllers into MIDI DIN controllers. I cannot wait for USB host Feather.
Well,
Absolutely.
we also have the MIDI Featherwing, so pop it on and it could magically work.
Next up, the USB host Feather. Could it be a tool for a business to see if a bad USB stick is one of those ones with a virus?
It'll definitely be able to tell. Like one thing it would be able to tell is whether it's only USB mass storage or if it has HID. There's like the bad USB devices that
I think that's
they look like a stick, but they're really
it's a keyboard that like goes to a website and downloads something.
Yeah, like you would know, and it would say, "Hey, you just plugged in something that has more than one." It's actually a hub inside. It isn't a mass storage only device. The only thing is I'd
avoid
say
Stuxnet with the new Adafruit USB host.
you could make something that filters it so you only get the mass storage, in out, but it would be very slow because you're going through an RP2040, right? So you could make something that shuffles back and forth the USB SCSI commands for mass storage. So it's like when you're you plug it in. It's like a USB condom, but it wouldn't be very slow. But you could do it.
Yeah, it'd be slow. However, it is a thing that you could put together just off the shelf, and you would know. There are devices that do that, but this is one that you can use for other things too. Someone said, pretty sure that 48 volts was chosen for data centers partially because of the battery chemistry in the early Bell machine rooms. Oh, right. Yeah.
I'm sure there's like 15 different reasons,
Yeah. You always hear you need to find the Scopes article and stuff. It's like, why are railroads this size? It's like because of the carriage wheels from the Roman Empire. And turns out that wasn't true or something.
Maybe not. Yeah.
So if anyone knows for sure,
it's a good story.
Yeah. Next up, why is AVR dying? The relative simplicity of its PCB carriers relative to, say, an RP2040 baseboard is much higher, or is it still alive and well?
I think AVR is still around. I mean, a lot of people use Arduino and Arduino compatibles, but yeah, pricing wise, like when you can get an RP2040 for the same cost, about $1 a piece, it's tough, right? Like, why go with something that's 8-bit and 512 bytes of memory when you can get something with 250 kilobytes of memory? So that said, they're still used a lot. We still use AVRs a lot. They're great when you want something very small. You don't want a lot of accessories. You don't need a lot of power usage. There's nothing wrong with them. I think that there's just a lot of more options in the market now. Yeah,
I mean, this kind of goes back to a parallel conversation we were talking about. So when Microchip bought Atmel, the chip development kind of stopped.
Yeah.
There should be a different.
There should be more.
There should be like a SAMD71 now.
A lot of people, I think there's some people left, and they probably went to other companies. And
generally speaking, mergers and acquisitions don't make for better products. Generally speaking, maybe there's exceptions to the rule, but usually it's no. But there's opportunities. I'm so glad the RP2040 is around because we all have a lot more choices and we can get them. Next up, are the CAN bus signals brought out accessible on ESP32 and STM32F405 feathers?
The F405, yes, they are, because I know that we did a test with them. Not every pin can use CAN. I believe only 2 or 4 of the pins can do it. On the ESP32, you can use any pins. Okay.
Someone posted up the maximum length of a network cable, 328 feet. The USB host feather, oh no, it's product ID 5723.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And it looks like some folks are posting up some information for what PoE, where the standard came from, and how to, there's PoE Plus now.
I read all this stuff, but I was like, I can't get into this.
Well, the other thing is there's PoE Plus now, everybody.
Oh, it goes on forever. Yeah. There's a lot.
Did you see those crazy USB logos, or the Lex USB?
I know. I think they ended it too. They're like, nobody can keep track of it. Yeah. It's a licensing thing.
All right. I think them's the questions, LadyAda.
Okay, cool.
Good work. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, right on time, 7 o'clock.
Oh, one last one. Can you recommend? Oh, can you use the RP2040 CAN feather for standard RS485 comms? Oh no, there's 3 of us.
Yes. I have not used RS485, but I believe that you can use it RS485, from UART adapter board, and then just use it with the RP2040 on the UART pins.
Okay. All right, that is the show. Thank you so much, everybody. Special thanks to Takara, did stuff behind the scenes. Everybody in the chat, thanks so much for filling the chat up with really good information tonight, and being patient with all these live demos and more. It was an exciting show. Lots of new stuff. We'll see everybody next week. This has been an Adafruit production. Here is your moment of Zener. Night, everybody.
Good night.